several earthquakes in Greece around Athens, and experts have warned about this. They have given a dire warning after the 6.2 earthquake in Istanbul in Turkey that happened at the end of April. And the experts said after that, Greece should be vigilant after this quake. So is something happening there now? Why is that? Let's have a look at the earthquakes. More than 4 stronger earthquakes around Athens in the last 24 hours. And the earthquakes occurred in the same zone where in November 2023, a tremor of magnitude 5.8 was recorded. So all these tremors that we're seeing now are in a zone that basically hasn't rumbled since 2023. So the experts are saying residents need to be cautious, especially for those living in old houses that have cracks in the houses already from the other earthquakes. Especially Akis Silentes, an expert in that, says do not enter the houses unless they have been checked by engineers that have already arrived in the area to do these checks. So why is there a warning? A seismologist at the Thessaloniki Aristotle University has struck quite an alarming tone after the earthquake in Turkey. Yes, he said that tremor, it was strong, but that tremor specifically did not pose a threat to Greece. But he said it's far too early to make any predictions about how this might evolve and how this might travel also in regards to aftershocks. Because that quake occurred along a known right lateral fault zone where the lower plate shifts eastward and the upper remains mostly stationary. So while the epicenter was near the fault's center, the seismic sequence appears to be extending towards Istanbul. This is a familiar rupture. It rumbles there. But also what the scientists made clear that this was not the long-feared big one that is expected further east along fault segments that remain unbroken. So it was, and that's the scary part, what they said, for this fault, this is a relatively small event, and that quake was only barely felt in Greece. I mean, if you talk about a fault line and say a 6 point something is a relatively small event, it's scary, I have to say that. So scientists are cautioning that this fault lies within a historically powerful seismic zone which has produced quakes over magnitude 7. So what does that have to do with Greece, and what does that have to do with this cluster of earthquakes that we see around Athens, 4.5, 4.2, and some others? Is that related? Because it's very close to that Anatolian fault. So is this whole thing about to get ready to rupture, or is this something else? And I want to tell you what Akis Silentes is saying, because we have heard from him quite a lot when the crisis in Santorini was going on. So he reports that an earthquake of 4.5 was felt in Euboea on Monday, and that was also the 4th earthquake in 24 hours. And this earthquake occurred in the same zone where in November 23, an earthquake of magnitude 5.1 was occurring. And what we have to say for these areas with these old brittle buildings, it's the same thing as in Naples, Campi Flegrei, Pozzuoli, where the experts are saying if we see anything over magnitude 5, even a 5.0, we will have hundreds of thousands of people that will be lost. Homes will crumble. It's the same thing in Greece. It just depends where is the epicenter, how shallow is the epicenter. So 5.1 is significant for these old buildings that are not up to code at all. And Akis Silentes says caution is required from residents right now, especially for those that are living in old houses or houses that have cracks already. And do not enter your homes again after these earthquakes until the experts have checked them, and engineers are now being deployed into these areas to check the homes, because some older, very brittle homes have collapsed from that already. So what is going on? They said Greece needs to worry after this Turkey earthquake. Well, a branch of the North-Anatolian Fault, which was causing this earthquake in Turkey, passes near the central area where these earthquakes also around Euboea were happening. But Akis Silentis thinks they are not related. And you might wonder, who is Akis Silentis? He's a professor of seismology at the National and Kapodistrian University of Athens. He was a senior researcher and associate at the Tokyo University. He studied there. He studied also radio electronics at the University of Zurich. He studied seismology in Cambridge. He studied geophysics at the Imperial College London. He has a PhD. He studied geophysics at the Metropolitan University. He studied physics at the National and Kapodistrian University. So quite an impressive vita. And he was the guy that was warning about Santorini and said, these buildings, they could slide down the hill because many of them are illegal or not built to code. And he was very drastic with that. And now, is there something being done? He doubts it. But now he's speaking about this area. And you see, if you look at the aerial picture, that is really a cluster of earthquakes. So it's a good thing if he thinks it's not related, but it could be just as a branch from the Anatolian Fault, maybe that, or the shaking of the North Anatolian Fault has triggered some smaller faults in that area. It has to come from something. Oh, it doesn't look like it's volcanic in this case, thankfully. But who would think, right? If you're doing your vacation in the beautiful Mediterranean, if you go to Greece, if you go to Italy and you sail around there, do you think of tsunamis? Do you think of underwater volcanoes? Do you think of like Mount Etna sinking into the sea, half of it causing a monster tsunami, volcanic eruptions? Do you think that Santorini is a volcano and the houses are built actually on the crater? Many people don't know that. I don't want to ruin your vacation, but I urge you to use caution right now because there's quite a few things going on. Campi Flegrei especially is rumbling, Naples, but also still Santorini. We just had another earthquake swarm, and you see it here on the map. You see the current earthquakes near Athens. You see what's going on in Santorini, and then you might wondering what's flashing there. Yep, that was a magnitude 6.3 earthquake near Crete. So a lot is going on, and that's why we really have to take these earthquakes here serious. And if you read comments in the social media, many locals that live there were very worried about these earthquakes because they were scared of the North Anatolian Fault, because a bigger earthquake magnitude something, as I just explained, would be bad. And thanks to my viewers that have commented on my last video, you live in Greece, and I had quite a few comments, and they said, well, we live in that area, or we live in Athens. We really felt it, and it was shaking for quite a while, and it really felt quite intense. So some said I was in my bed, I was on my couch, I was really shaking and rattling. So this was nothing that wasn't really felt at all. I know for those that live in California, you're like, that's a nothing burger. But for this area, it means something because they're not seismically upgraded like California. And residents are saying the bad thing was also that it was happening at night. Many people were sleeping. So one writes on social media, I jumped out of my bed. I woke up. It was so strong. And I still feel the fear. So they're worried, they're scared. And he says, may this seismic activity stop. We have so much to deal with every day, and fear and turmoil is now added. We are lost. So I really feel for these people. This is absolutely terrible. Another guy writes, even in Athens, I woke up and it had a long duration and intense shaking. Another writes, I thought there was a bomb exploding. Another one, it scared me And this up and down that I felt 2 nights in a row is absolutely frightening. Another says, it was so loud, I thought, I'm done. I thought, this is over for me. Another one said, I woke up in terror because of that scary vibration. So this tells you, this was not something that almost nobody felt. It was quite the opposite. So now we have to wait and see if there's more earthquakes coming. Hopefully not. So really just yesterday there was a 4.4, then there was a 4.5 today that was immediately followed by a aftershock 3.6 at a depth of 16.9 kilometers, according to the Athens Institute of Geodynamics. And the Athens area, they're plagued by a lot of natural disasters. I mean, it has always been one of the country's regions that is most exposed to these natural disasters and hazards, particularly earthquakes, but also floods, heat waves, droughts, and terrible, terrible forest fires. So let's hope for the best. I will keep you updated as soon as I know more, guys. Check out the videos in the end screen here. I have just released some other very, very interesting stuff. And if you want to support the channel, guys, check out the links in the description. I have a Buy Me a Coffee site. Link is in the description. You can support the channel with coffees. I support my farm with that, my animals. And thanks for everyone who's a member of this channel and supporting my work through that, and for the supers, and for being here and for watching. If you made it to the end, thank you so much. If you're new here, subscribe, and I hope to see you safe and sound very, very soon, guys. It's absolutely terrible. I'm thinking of everyone who's living in the US with these terrible tornadoes and floods. I hope you're all safe. It's terrible to watch. I have to say that. So the world is rumbling. It's terrible everywhere. So be prepared. Stay safe. I hope to hear from you soon. Bye.